Hello out there in the void. Rizzo back once more to Babylon endlessly. And it turns out if you talk to the void long enough, maybe the void starts talking back.
The Void knew little about Mortal Kombat when the Void began watching this film. Now the Void seems to know less.
Yeah, that's right. Mortal Kombat because we're topical. But not the one that everyone else is talking about. No, we're going back to the original. And, well, I thought it best to get multiple opinions on this one, as, for me, I grew up with Mortal Kombat. I remember this one in theaters. I've played the game since I was but a small knee-high. Pippi Rizzo. I think I was 9 when this one came out. So I was playing the games probably even before then. Don't tell my parents. I don't know how I got a hold of those. Anyway, so did you, have any experience with it beforehand?
The Void has played Mortal Kombat twice. The Void has a distinct memory of ripping a man's half spine out through his spine. It was cathartic.
If I recall, I think you played not Mortal Kombat, but Mortal Kombat. There's a difference. That would be the 2009 remake, which is also called Mortal Kombat. But
The Void is confused.
But it wasn't exactly a remake because it was more of a... because it was a different story, but spiraled into the same one. Mortal Kombat is convoluted as all hell.
Perhaps we should return to the film.
Right. So, we'll talk about Mortal Kombat, not Mortal Kombat, or Mortal Kombat. Right. So, what did you think, first off?
The Void was entertained. There was quipping, which was enough to amuse the Void, and it was campy.
It is a piece of scene-chewing majesty, really. So, plotline of Mortal Kombat, a bunch of people fight each other. Is there really anything else you really need to know about this one? But I guess it does actually mirror the first video game fairly well, as there's a big-ass tournament and winner-take-all for the ability to rule the world, more or less. Once a generation, the tournament happens, win 10 consecutive victories, and Outworld invades, and that is bad. So, the Outworld has won 9 for 9, and they're coming for number 10, and our ragtag group of heroes has to fend them off.
Possibly strange women in ponds distributing swords might be an easier way of government.
Yes, but less popcorn-worthy.
Perhaps.
Unless a cute one in ponds. So, numerous characters from the first 2 Mortal Kombats appear at this one. I think that was all that was out at this point. And, well, most of the interpretations are actually pretty spot on. Any questions about Mortal Kombat plot or characters initially, Void?
Does Kitana have more of a deal in the game? She seemed to have a deal. That was only vaguely hinted at.
Kitana's deal is... okay, in this movie, they mentioned she's the Emperor's adopted daughter. And yes, that is part of it. Her deal is one of the more convoluted in the games. And this is just my best recollections because Mortal Kombat's been going on since 1990, 92. And that's a lot of years of revision and back and forth on deciding who's actually important. Kitana initially was just the Blue Lady Ninja. Was pretty much her deal in the first game. But she's the adopted daughter of Shao Kahn after he came and took over the world of Edenia and pretty much turned it into Outworld. He murdered the royal family, as was mentioned in the game, and pretty much took her as his adopted daughter in some weird power play.
This seems short-sighted.
To make it more complicated, he then rose the queen from the dead and had her as a weird, corrupted version of herself, but that's Mortal Kombat 3 territory. And she was more sticking around as his lackey to try to free her mother. So she was originally a warrior working with him, but under coercion of her mother being
See, it makes more sense if he has leverage like that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, keeping her around just seems like a liability.
So I think it was hinted in the games more. It was to keep the residents in line during the whole extermination thing, to have the princess there. But that's just a little bit of speculation on my part for that. But yeah, Kitana's always been sort of Liu Kang's sometimes love interest, so they did keep that in, but they definitely kind of fast-forwarded it in the confines of the movie, like most movies in the 90s do. This one's circa 95, I believe.
Was Sonya military or police? This was bothering the Void throughout the entire movie, because the Void could not figure it out.
Military. She is military. And her partner at the beginning, Jax, is actually another main character, too, but he just had a cameo in this one, but he gets some screen time in the next movie. That's a whole nother kettle of fish. Mortal Kombat Annihilation is an experience.
There was very much sequel baiting.
Yes, yes. And there is a sequel, and it does pick up right after this, but I think only a handful of the actors were able to reprise their roles, and they lost Christopher Lambert, so they had a different actor as rated, and all his charm was gone. He took more of the wise mentor streak, which Raiden was doing, but with such snark in this one.
Ah, the old dick mentor strategy.
Yeah. Raiden is... He's the reason... he's enough of a reason for me to watch this movie, just for his performance.
He was entertaining.
And Johnny Cage is always just a fan favorite, just because he's such a dick.
He had the best quips.
He really does. He really does. So another character I'd like to bring up in detail is Reptile, because what the hell were they doing with Reptile?
Is that what that was? Was that Randall from Monsters Incorporated?
It might as well have been. So, okay. Reptile has a convoluted history in the games that I'm not even sure if I understand properly, and his interpretation in the movie here has nothing to do with that either. So, in Mortal Kombat 1, Reptile was a secret character that if you that had a double flawless victory in a certain stage when a shadow passed over the moon and performed a specific fatality, you could fight.
Seems complicated.
That was not actually an exaggeration. That was actually how you fought him.
In a specific phase of the moon.
Essentially, in a certain stage, there's the moon visible in the background, and occasionally a shadow would pass over it.
Ah.
If the shadow passed over it, it would happen.
The Void assumed that was dramatic hyperbole.
Nope, no, that was actually part of it. So, in the first Mortal Kombat game, there were just the two ninjas, Scorpion and Sub-Zero. So Reptile was just a green palette swap fusion of them. He could do the moves of both Sub-Zero and Scorpion, and had absolutely no canonical place in the storyline. He was just a bonus character. He just had both their moves and was super fast. Mortal Kombat 2 rolls around, and they actually turned him into a character. Dubbed Reptile, and they made him then still green, but they gave him a bunch of lizardy powers, like acid spit, and if he took off his mask, occasionally you'd see like a green lizard face, and he would be known to eat his opponents if certain fatalities were done. But for the most part, he was completely human, just sort of did the lizard thing. As it went on, then he was more and more lizard, or less and less lizard, depending on the iteration of the game. So they went back and forth of who and what he was. Eventually, they think they came to terms with he was some sort of lizard man from another realm that was already taken over, and so he was a shock troop because of that. In this game, he's a CGI monstrosity. And I really can't explain how he is in this movie. He's apparently some CG-generated lizard that's running around acting as Kitana's guardian.
And then he jumped into a skeleton and turned into a person.
He was more thrown in. It looked like he was trying to get out of the skeleton, though. Like, the skeleton was pulling him in.
Maybe it was his skeleton. Was it his skeleton?
I don't know. Like, he didn't seem to want to be in the skeleton. He was acting like a cat trying to scratch his way out of it when he was first being pulled in.
Maybe he didn't like his body.
Maybe.
Maybe he preferred being a CGI
I don't even know if it was his body. He just seemed to fuse with it, and then I guess it became Reptile as the music track just actually says reptile when he appears. So, okay. And he continues to make lizardy hissing noises.
If the Void could turn into a CGI monstrosity over a humanoid form, the Void might do it for a little while. Just for the novelty.
Or at least for the invisibility powers.
Hmm.
Alright. Otherwise, I guess I should bring up their poor handling of Sub-Zero and Scorpion. So what did you think of their characters?
They had characters?
Exactly my point.
Hmm.
So, can you tell me anything about them?
Sub-Zero did ice things, and shouted a lot. Scorpion threw a weird chain thingy out of his palm.
And shouted even more.
And shouted even more.
Yeah, so first off, the spear. I have no idea why they did that, other than maybe to use CG, because CG is very new at this time. So, I guess they wanted to somehow make use of it. I mean, in the games, he just throws a spear. Even the most convoluted, outlandish versions of the game, he's still just throwing a spear. Yeah, in the later games, he's an undead warrior bent on utter vengeance and destruction. But he just has a spear. Let him throw his spear. Don't turn it into a living eel thing.
It's hard to beat the classics.
Mm. Well, so far their characterization in this is summed up by one line of dialogue from Shang Tsung. The deadliest of enemies, but slaves under my power. So essentially they cover for them having absolutely no character by saying they're pretty much under Shang Tsung's control.
Was that not the case in the game?
I don't really recall from the first one. I believe they each had different reasons in there. So their history is... then they're both members of a ninja order called the Lin Kuei, which they're more of a the Sub-Zeros of the Lin Kuei. Scorpion was of a different order that was wiped out by the Lin Kuei, and Sub-Zero in particular was one of the main people wiping them out and killed his family and child. So Scorpion's bit is and also killed him. But Scorpion clawed his way back to life as an undead monstrosity to seek out vengeance and kill Sub-Zero. He's all about killing Sub-Zero. So that's his goal. Sub-Zero, in this, I don't remember his original motivations for being part of the tournament. I think he was... The Lin Kuei were just hired out by Shang Tsung, and he was the representative for it. Later on... Then Scorpion manages to kill Sub-Zero, but then a new Sub-Zero comes up. That's the brother, the original one. So, he's working to correct the order and refine it to stop it from being such an evil order, particularly when the cyber ninjas get involved.
This movie had a distinct lack of cyber ninjas.
That's the second one.
Ah.
Of course, that's depending on the timeline. As of the recombining, Sub-Zero does not manage to refine his order. He instead gets turned into a cyber ninja, and Smoke is the one who does that. But that's...
The Void thinks the Void needs a flowchart.
Yeah, that would really help for just explaining Mortal Kombat. This movie came about when the games were much simpler. Back in Mortal Kombat 2, Mortal Kombat 1, I think, had 8 fighters. Tops. And I think, to my memory, all of them just appear in this movie. Like, the entire cast is there. Mortal Kombat 2 added a bunch of others. That's where Kitana came from, and Reptile, and Jax. Those are all from the second game. There's several other characters that were added then also that just didn't make the cut here. Most of those appear in Annihilation. But so do a lot of characters from Mortal Kombat 3, but that's going to be a long video when I do get around to that one.
Every time you say that title, it seems to trigger a flashback of some sort.
Me, if anyone's been watching my show, they know I have eclectic tastes when it comes to movies.
No tastes, is what you mean.
Hush. But... even I recognize Mortal Kombat Annihilation, when I first saw it as a much younger lad, was not a good movie. I kept re-seeing it because I wanted to like it. I don't know if I ever really did. They make some choices that I'm not fond of. And they throw so much at the screen. The director for this one was not involved in that one. He has usually a lot of creative control over the movies he does. He was then, but he realized his mistakes in letting that get away from him, as how bad Mortal Kombat Annihilation was received. So when he started the Resident Evil franchise, he kept his hands in the entire way.
Was that a good thing?
Jury's out. We'll probably be deliberating for a couple more years. I enjoyed several of the Resident Evil movies, as evidenced in these reviews, but they got problems. They got a lot of problems. Anyway, so another standout in this one is Shang Tsung. Oh my god, is he chewing the screen?
I suppose it would have cut down on the catering budget.
Well, they threw half that on the floor in the dining room scene. But, yeah, Hiroyuki Tagawa is amazing in this. The way he stone-faced delivers some of the most ridiculous lines. Oh, bless that man. Your soul is mine. Oh, he's so campy. I love how a lot of people at the time were joking that his cameo in Sabrina the Teenage Witch was actually a Mortal Kombat cameo, but was not actually. But so he can fight Sabrina, and that was kind of funny.
The Void did grow up on Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and has fond memories of that episode.
Mm-hmm.
Mainly because it was ridiculous.
So, whenever I mention the CG in this movie is terrible. When they do practical effects, okay, those are pretty good. Particularly how they handle Goro. Admittedly, Goro's growling and yelling constantly and roaring like he's some sort of monster out of a Dungeons and Dragons episode. Maybe not the best choice.
Is he meant to be unintelligent? In the games, was he stupid?
In the
like
games,
a beast.
He didn't really have much of a personality, because he was mostly known in Mortal Kombat 1, which he was a boss character that he had like a one-page write-up. He wasn't intended to be stupid. He's in fact a general in an army. But his characterization of the game was him mostly growling in the fight. So they kind of took that and ran with it. He actually speaks a little bit more, I think, in the more recent games when they do the time travel things and he's involved again. But he perished in the first game, so he doesn't reappear again until Mortal Kombat 9, not counting the games where they just slip it in every character. So that's a good 20 years later. No. Yes? No. Just
the Void has no
10 years
concept of time anymore.
More than 10 years. 15 years. Somewhere in there.
So,
A long time.
2000, right?
2009 for that one. Or 2009, 2011. No, it was 2011.
What about Straya? Straya.
Straya?
Straya.
Straya?
Aggressively Australian.
Oh, Kano?
Did he even have that thing with Sonya in the game where she's angry with him?
Yes, I believe she was. Her main shtick was trying to kill him in the games also. Then Kano, I think in the original game looked a bit more machine, but they did kind of work that down to the mask you kind of see in this one. He was originally half Japanese, half American, and leader of a group called the Black Dragons, which is a big criminal underground organization. They're pretty much a Yakuza group. And, well, investigating, trying to do some into their international terrorism. They're a big group. Sonya's military group, her partner was killed, so she was out for blood on Kano. I'm pretty sure that is canonical to the games. Kano now was aggressively Australian in this, and the creators loved that, so as of Mortal Kombat 3 onward, he became Australian. That said, they did it because they were so impressed with the actor's portrayal. They were so impressed that they thought the actor was Australian, but he was actually British.
Well, good accent then.
he has claimed to have been descended from Australians, I believe, but he was just doing an accent for the character. I can't remember his name, and he's not conveniently listed right on the box, so I off the top of my head. His last name's Goddard, though. I can't remember his first name. Most of the actors in this are not as big name, since they don't have so much budget. And that all went to Christopher Lambert. Who all watching anything, really? Highlander. He's a big standout in Highlander.
Mm.
Which has its own weird ethnicity issues.
The Void has also never seen Highlander.
We'll have to fix that. Well, in this, he's playing the Chinese god of thunder, despite being a Frenchman.
Like you do.
Highlander, he's playing a Scottish. Then he's playing a Scotsman. When you have Sean Connery in the movie, who's playing a Spaniard.
Naturally.
Yes. I should watch Highlander again. That'll be another review coming up after I finish Video Game Month, I think. Alright, so the main elephant in the room for this one was the rating when it came out. Mortal Kombat has always been a 17-plus game, so that wouldn't actually make an R-rated movie. Nope. PG-13. Mostly so they could merchandise, I think. But
They merchandise with Alien.
Exactly the point I was going to bring up. They have merchandise with Alien, Terminator, RoboCop, Predator. All had kids' toys. I had a lot of those toys. Those are all R-rated movies.
Ah, the 80s. Early 90s? 80s, early 90s?
A lot of that was 90s for the toys.
Mm-hmm.
I think when Alien 3 came out is when a lot of the Alien toys were, which was, I think, 94. Could be 93. But, yep, so while there are fatalities, they're not Mortal Kombat fatalities.
Mostly just falling over.
Mostly falling over. You hear a neck snap. One guy gets impaled. There's a couple impalings, but they're the most bloodless impalings.
Very neat.
Very clean. I mean, the original Mortal Kombats were gruesome at the time, but they were very simple. Mortal Kombat nowadays, every game they have to top on what they did before. In the first game, you could just do a fatality, you just simple grab a guy by the neck, tear his head up, and his spinal column come with it. That'd be all you need. Or you'd punch him in the heart, chest, pull out his heart. Sure. Simple. Now you got things where they're cut 6 different ways with a bladed hat.
Impressive.
Or you'll have a buzzsaw going and you're slowly pushing someone's head into it before beating them to death with their own legs. The amount of dismemberments are downright impressive in the modern Mortal Kombat games. Juicy. So, from MacGuffin scale, this one's a hard one to rate because it's not a good movie, but it's such a fun movie.
The Void got several unironic chuckles.
Yep, the dialogue is either so bad and campy it's hilarious, or actually kind of clever. Like, especially anything involving Christopher Lambert just playing around as rated. Then the fate of billions is on your hands. Sorry. What are you doing?
Having fun.
It's clear the whole cast is having fun. So, I mean, really, this one's probably should be a 2 or a low 3 quality-wise on my MacGuffin scale, but I just have a lot of fun with this one. It has a special place in my childhood, so I have to give it a 4 MacGuffins. I do, and I'm not even sorry about it. What do you think, Boyd? Where would you rate this one?
Without the rose-tinted goggles of childhood nostalgia, the Void will give this a solid 3 MacGuffins.
3 MacGuffins, that's fair. So, with no experience really with the games other than playing a couple rounds, did you find it easy to follow?
The Void had no more trouble following it than some other action movies with very thinly characterized people.
Fair. It's fair. But as a standalone movie, I suppose it doesn't hold up as well, because they don't bring a lot to the characters, particularly some where they criminally underplay.
Lacking most of the context, really.
Hmm.
I suspect that more would be evident if you weren't familiar with the games.
But I think some of the primary characters of at least Sonya, Johnny, and Liu Kang come across enough that they're an enjoyable trio in this.
They were entertaining. Again, many quips.
So, who was your favorite character?
It's a toss-up between Liu Kang because of his impressive Farrah Fawcett hair and general likability, and Raiden because Christopher Lambert.
For me, it'd have to be either Lord Raiden or Johnny Cage, just because Johnny Cage is just, yeah, he's a dick, but you gotta love his attitude. He is hilarious. Alright, I think that's all on this one. I know from what I've been hearing, a lot of back and forth, mixed reviews on the new Mortal Kombat. I haven't seen it. I'll see it eventually, but I've yet to actually review anything theatrical on this show, so that's not going to be yet. So maybe I will at some point, but that really leaves me the inability to brandish DVD cases at the screen, which is something I'm very fond of doing. My reviews lack something where I can't shake things at the screen. Wow.
Possibly pitchforks.
I'm gonna have to buy a pitchfork then. There's a hardware store not too far from here. Well, I guess that's it. Any final thoughts?
Oh, the Void has issued its judgment.
Fair enough. Alright, so I don't know how often I'm going to be able to convince the Void to actually speak up. The Void is cursed with what I would call taste. So they usually don't watch nearly as many of my kind of movies as I think people should. But
The Void also has a very low gore tolerance.
yes, well. But we'll see if we can have a bit of a rapport every once in a while. Well, have a good night, everyone.